Now in this section we'll learn commands that will help us to navigate between different folders or directories, uh, display the present working directory or the current working directory, list all the files and folders that are present in a directory, and finally how to create and delete directories, right? So you can also see those associated commands here. The first one is pwd, which will print the present working directory or the current working directory. Then we have ls, which will list directory contents, right? That is files and folders, including those which are hidden, right? And using options, we can also look at the size of those files or folders and what was the last modification time. Now cd stands for change directory, and using it we'll be able to navigate between different directories, right? And we can also go to the root directory or the home directory. I'll explain what those are. And finally you have mkdir for creating a directory and rmdir for removing directories, right? So rmdir will remove only empty directories. Later on we'll learn how to delete directories which have other files and folders. Now on the right you can also see the R functions which are similar, right? So getwd will give you the current working directory, or you can use the here package and the here function, and then you have dir function, list.files, list.dirs, and dir underscore info and dir underscore ls from the fs package. So you can use that to list directory contents. Change working directory, now you can use setwd. To create a new directory, you have dir.create from base r and dir underscore create from the fs package. And to delete or remove a directory, you can use dir underscore delete from the fs package, right? So now let us try out these commands one by one. Now we'll also spend more time looking at the ls and cd commands, right? So we look at all the options that can be used with ls command, and we'll also look at how to navigate between directories using the cd command, right? So let us go to RStudio. I'll extend this so that we have more space, right? Let us start with the first one, which is pwd. That will print the present working directory, right? So we are in the J drive, the R directory, and then bash dash tutorial directory or the subdirectory, right? And it is also visible here before the prompt, right? You can see the present working directory here as well, right? So use this whenever you want to know in which directory you are. If you have been navigating between different directories, then you can use pwd to see in which directory you are present, right? The next one is ls, right? And it will display information about files and directories in the current directory, in the present directory, along with associated metadata such as size, ownership, and modification date, right? So let us look at all the files and folders in this directory, right? So you can see there are lots of files, and those highlighted in green are the folders, right? So my files, my package, my project, right? All those are folders, and there's also an R folder, right? So rest of them are they're all files, right? So use ls whenever you want to list files and folders in a directory. I'll spend more time on ls in a few minutes, right? Next is the cd command, right? cd will allow you to navigate between directories. So let us say we want to go into the my project folder, right? So I'll use cd and followed by the name of the folder, right? So if you use pwd now, you can see that you are in the my project directory or my project folder, right? And that has also changed here, right? Before the prompt, you can see my project here, Earlier it was only bash tutorial. Right, now I'm going to go back to the bash tutorial directory, and we'll also spend more time on the cd command in a few minutes. Right, now how to create a new directory. Right, so I'm going to create a directory named example. Okay, so I use the mkdir command followed by the name of the directory that we want to create. Since I'm creating this directory in the bash.tutorial directory, that is in the present working directory, I'm not giving the path. And if you want to create it in some other directory, then you can specify the relative or absolute path, and you will be able to create the directories. Okay, so let us create this. Now if we use ls, then you should be able to see the example directory created. Right, so here it has been created. Here it was not present earlier. Now you can see that, and just to use the rmdiff command, we will remove that directory we created. Right, and you also don't need to type in the full name of a folder or file. Right, you can use tab for tab completion, and you can avoid typing the entire name of the file or folder. Right, so now let us remove this example folder, and if I use ls again, you can see that it is not present, it has been removed. Right, so these 5 commands, remember them. pwd for present working directory or current working directory, ls to list the files and folders in a directory, cd to navigate between directories, rmdir to remove a directory or delete a directory, and mkdir to create a directory. Right, now let us move on. Right, I'll use clear to clear the screen so that we can go to the next section and explore more commands. Right, so we'll go to the next section, which is changing directory. Right, so when we are looking at the navigating file system section, I said that I'll spend more time on the ls and cd commands. Right, we'll look at them in more depth now. First we'll start off with the cd command that will allow us to navigate between directory. So cd stands for change directory or change working directory, and we'll look at 5 variations here. Right, so cd followed by the folder name will allow us to enter that folder or directory, that is navigate into that directory. cd followed by 2 dots, that's a double dots, will allow us to go up one level in the directory hierarchy. cd followed by a dash, right, that will allow us to go to the previous working directory. Right, so that directory from which we came to the present directory, will be able to go to that directory. Then we can learn how to go to the home directory as well as the root directory. Now I'll come to the definition of what the home directory or the root directory is. Right, so let's get started. Right, so these are the 5 variations we'll explore. Let us go to the terminal. Let us first see how we can go to the root directory. Right, so the root directory is the one main directory from which all your files and the other directories stem from. Right, all the other directories in the system are subdirectories of the root directory, and the root directory doesn't have a parent directory. Right, so for example, here my project or my package here is a subdirectory of bash tutorial. Right, so bash tutorial here is the parent directory of the other directories present here, which is my files, my package, my project, and others. Now the root directory doesn't have a parent directory. Right, it is this, it's like the main source directory for all the others other directories that are present in your system, right? And it is represented by a single slash, and cd followed by the slash will change the current working directory to the root directory, right? So if I run that here, we'll go to the root directory, right? So now I am not in the bash tutorial directory anymore. I am in the root directory, right? So if I run ls here, you will see a different set of uh, folders here, right? You don't see bash tutorial, you don't see any of the my files or my package, because now we are in the root directory. Now to go to the bash tutorial directory, I'll have to navigate, right? So I'll start navigating using cd, right? Here we'll go into the J drive, then we'll go into R directory, and then the bash tutorial, right? So now we are back in the bash tutorial directory, right? So we use cd slash and we ended up in the root directory, right, which is the main directory from which all the other files and directories stem from, right? So use this if you have to go to the root directory, okay? Otherwise you can use some other variation of cd. Now let us look at the home directory, right? The home directory is the directory we are placed in by default when we launch a new terminal session, right? So when you start a new terminal session, the home directory is the present working directory, and it is represented by the tilde, right? So if I use here, then we'll end up in the home directory, right, which is the same as the root directory in our case, right? So when we use the slash, we ended up in the same place. Okay, now we are in the home directory, right? So here you can see home, right? And that is where we ended up when we use the tilde, right? So now I'm going to navigate back and go to the bash tutorial directory, right? So if you want to go to the home directory, you can use cd followed by the tilde, right? Otherwise, if you want to go to the root directory, you can use cd followed by slash. Okay, so let me clear up the screen. So we have looked at two variations now, one to go to the root directory and one to go to the home directory, right? Now how about going up one level, right? So we are in the bash tutorial directory, and going up one level will lead us to the R directory, right? Because the R directory is the parent directory of the bash tutorial directory here, right? So if you use double dot, you go up one level, okay? And to enter back to the bash tutorial directory, we'll again use cd followed by bash tutorial, okay? So now we looked at going up one level, going to the home directory, going to the root directory. Now how about going to the previous working directory? So that's cd followed by a dash again. So we went back to the previous directory, right? So when we did cd followed by two dots, we went up one level to the parent directory of the current directory, right? And that was the R directory. So now when we use cd dash, then it takes us to the previous working directory. So R was our previous working directory, and when we use cd followed by dash, we end up in the previous working directory, right? So let us go back to bash tutorial, right? And finally, if you have cd followed by one dot, it will not do anything. You'll remain or stay in the present working directory, right? So here you can see that cd followed by one dot will ensure that you are in the present working directory, right? So it will be a bit confusing the way we are covering it, but what I would suggest is that you try
all of these options one by one, right? So first you try the dot one, you will remain in the same working directory, and then you specify a folder name so that you enter that particular folder, right? Then use the double dot so that you go up one level. Okay, use cd followed by a dash so that you go to the previous working directory, and you also use cd slash and tilde so that you can also go to the root directory and the home directory, right? So do the navigation, go between different folders. You'll also get lost in those folders, right? So use the pwd command to look at the present working directory and then slowly navigate back to your current working directory, which should be bash tutorial, right? Because here is where we have all the files and folders that we'll be using for the rest of the course, right? So you need to stay in this directory, but you can navigate to these other directories while exploring the cd command, right? Great. Now let us move on from the cd command to the next one, which is ls, right? So we used this earlier to list directory contents, right? Now let us clear up the screen and we will explore the ls command in more detail, right? And look at the different options that we can use along with the ls command, right? So first we'll just use ls like we used earlier, and we'll just list all the files and folders, right? So the next option that we look at is ls space dash and l, right? So this will list one file per line, right? Here in the previous case there are multiple files and folders which are there per line. Now this will list one file per line, right? So you can compare the output in both the cases when you have just used ls and then you have used ls with dash l, right? So there is more information here, right? You have the file permissions, right? That is the rwx rw stuff that you are seeing there. I'll not go into it. And then you have the username, then what is the file size, what is the last modification date for each of these files, and the file name, right? So you have more information now. In the previous case you just had the file name or the folder name, but now you have more information including file permissions, what is the file size or the folder size, when was it last modified as well, right? Now what about hidden files, right? Right now we are not able to see any hidden files here, right? So we'll see how we can list hidden files as well. Use the option dash a, right? So ls space dash a, and this will also show you the hidden files, right? So for example here you have .git, .git ignore, right? And then there's dot, single dot, double dot files, right? So whenever you want to view hidden files, you can use the a option, right? ls space dash a, and you can combine these as well, right? So we just used the option L before and now we are looking at A. Now let us combine both of them, right? Where we want to list all the files and folders, and we also want to list the hidden files and folders, right? So now you see the output here, right? So it has listed the hidden files and folders, which you can see at the top, right? .git, .rhistory, .rproducer, the single dot, the double dot folders, right? You can see all of them there, and it has listed them one per line, and you can also see the file permissions, the file size, the last modification date as well, right? So some of these options you can combine them to get more comprehensive output, right? How about the size if you want it in a human readable format, right? So we'll use another option which is H, that is basically for human readable format. So I'm going to use ls-lh, right? So it will list all the files one per line, have that metadata as well, which is file permission, size, modification date, but the size is now in human readable format, right? So you can see kilobytes, megabits, right? Kilobits, megabits, everything is there in the file size column, right? And again you have all the other metadata as well. Now let us see if we can sort this listing, right? We want to sort this listing either by size or by modification date, right? So I'll clear the screen. I'm going to use ls again, then followed by L, because I want the files to be listed one per line, and then I'm going to use capital S, right? Now this will ensure that the listing is sorted by size, right? You have the biggest file which is listed first, and then it goes on to the smallest file, which is analysis.r, right? And if you want it in a human readable format, again, if you want the size to be in human readable format, we'll use the H option as well, right? Now you can see the size in kilobits and megabits, right? So the biggest file is 31 MB, right? That's the first file, and then the size goes on reducing, right? That's the only file which is in megabits. Rest of them are all in kilobits, right? So if you want to sort the listing by size, can use capital S, and if you want to list the files and folders by the last modification date, right? By the modification date, then you can use ls, then ltr, right? So let me run this, and you can see the date in ascending order, right? So it first shows all those files which were modified on October 15th, then 16th and 17th, along with the time, right? So you can use ls to view the files and folders. You can also view hidden files and folders, right? You can list these files one per line using L option. You can display metadata, right, which is permission, file permissions, ownership, file size, and the modification date. You can sort them by both size and the modification date, right? So that brings us to the end of the section on navigating file system, right? So try out all these commands, try to combine them, right? Combine the different options that you have, okay? And if you want to list the files and folders in a directory, then you don't have to navigate into that directory and run ls, right? So for example, here, if I want to see the files and folders in the my package folder, right, one thing I can do is I can go to my package, right? I'll navigate into my package using cd, and then I'll run ls, right? So I'll list all the files and folders in the my package directory, right? But I have navigated into it. Another way to do is, instead of navigating into the directory and then running ls, you can use ls followed by the name of the directory, right? So here I am running the command ls followed by the name of the directory, which is my package, right? It will list all the files and folders for you even in this method, right? So if you want to view the files and folders in a particular directory, just use ls along with the name of the directory, right? Now we'll move on to the next section, which is file management, right? So we'll learn how to create files, we'll learn how to copy files, that is make copies of those files, how to move file from one directory to another, and how to finally delete files, right? We can delete files and folders, and we can also compare files and folders, right? We'll see compare files
two different files and see what changes we have to make those files identical, right? And we'll also compare the contents of two directories to see how they differ from one another.